Nestled within the vast ocean, a mysterious island sits quietly beneath a bright and hazy morning sky. Nearby, inside a cozy classroom, a small octopus-like creature watches the snow fall while its teacher stands close. Washio-sensei gestures broadly while explaining the mechanics of a high-level simultaneous activation spell to his attentive students. In the middle of the lecture, the creature writes down its secret wish to one day become human. This confession prompts other students to jokingly admit they also want to marry their teacher in the future. Startled by their bluntness, Sensei turns to the creature and asks if that is truly its primary motivation. Looking sadly at its many limbs, the creature notes the physical traits that separate it from human beings. Consequently, it pauses with a heavy heart, questioning if its strange appearance makes the teacher feel sick. Reaching out with compassion, Sensei holds the creature's head and assures it that those fears are completely untrue. A close-up view captures the creature's emotional reaction as it processes the teacher's comforting and heartfelt reassurance. Washio Sensei then smiles down at his class with a look of genuine pride and warmth in his eyes. Seizing the opportunity, the teacher prepares to announce something significant to all the gathered students in the room. Far away from the school, the grand spires of the Medium Kingdom's castle tower majestically over the city. After classes conclude, exhausted students wander through the corridors while discussing their plans to finally head home. The elaborate stone crest of the academy marks the entrance to this prestigious institution of higher magical learning. Suddenly, a young girl accidentally bumps into a tall, scruffy man walking through the busy hallway. The man pauses to check on her, his tie loosened as he offers a polite and concerned apology. Shocked by the physical contact, the girl's expression shifts into one of pure, unadulterated horror and disgust. She immediately turns on her heel and bolts away, leaving the man standing alone and confused in the corridor. While running, she complains about the foul smell of the man she identifies as the old Washio. Washio slumps his shoulders in despair, muttering to himself that he really isn't as old as they say. Defending his hygiene, he sniffs his clean clothes and insists he bathes every single day to stay fresh. Standing alone in the corridor, he remains lost in thought while a mysterious figure walks toward him. Suddenly, his eyes widen in total disbelief at this unexpected sight. A beautiful student with a suitcase pauses nearby, her striking appearance immediately commanding his full attention. Stunned into silence, Washio can only stare as his brain struggles to process this sudden encounter. His expression turns intensely focused as he notes her impressive physical attributes with a sense of awe. He remains completely frozen while the surrounding atmosphere suddenly shifts. He wonders about the unfamiliar luggage she carries, realizing he has never seen this girl at the school before. The girl's determined gaze meets his, her proximity causing his heart rate to spike in the quiet hall. Blankly, Washio watches her every move, completely unsure of how to handle this bizarre and sudden situation. She tilts her head curiously while examining him, her expression a mix of playfulness and hidden intent. With a subtle smile playing on her lips, she prepares to make a move that catches him off guard. Without warning, she lunges forward into a tight and overwhelming embrace. Feeling the unexpected softness of the hug, Washio's face goes stiff as he remains paralyzed by the contact. Suspicion begins to cloud his mind, wondering if this is just a cruel prank or some student's dare. Nearby, groups of students begin to whisper and point, their judgmental stares only adding to his growing panic. Desperately, he begs the girl to let go as the surrounding crowd starts calling him a degenerate teacher. The physical contact intensifies even more before his many stunned students. Sweat beads on his forehead as he realizes his reputation is crumbling with every passing second of this hug. Clinging to him, the girl asks for directions to the head teacher's office after losing her way and map. He explains the location is on the 4th floor, noting a map should be in her identification book. In response, she immediately kneels on the floor to rummage through her large and intricately decorated travel suitcase. Opening the heavy lid, she confidently declares that her identification book should be buried somewhere deep inside. Her expression suddenly shifts to absolute horror upon realizing that the essential document is nowhere to be found. Washio watches with concern as she panics, admitting she sent the wrong luggage to the school dormitory. Overwhelmed by the blunder, she clutches her head in frustration while he attempts to soothe her rising nerves. Crouching down to meet her eye level, he begins a gentle lecture about how haste causes avoidable errors. To offer further comfort, he places a warm and reassuring hand on top of her head tenderly. He smiles broadly, promising that any problem can be solved if she simply maintains a calm and steady demeanor. A sudden close-up reveals her shimmering eyes, wide with surprise at the unexpected kindness of his paternal touch. Continuing the advice, he suggests visiting the academic affairs section to request a new replacement identification book. She remains momentarily frozen and dazed, her small face flushing as she absorbs his calm and steady presence. Reciting his words back to herself, she tries to internalize the important lesson about staying calm always. A brief moment of silence follows as he mentions drawing upon various wisdoms from his own mysterious past. He reminisces about his stressful life as a former office clerk who once lost a night of work. His eyes drift away momentarily, reflecting on the deep hardships and experiences of his previous life long ago. Confused by his strange modern terminology, the girl tilts her head and wonders if an office worker is edible. Realizing his slip-up, he laughs awkwardly and waves goodbye while apologizing for his weird and confusing remarks. As he walks down the long corridor, the girl stands still and watches his departing figure with curiosity. Washio stands alone, his expression weighed down by the lingering exhaustion of the day's bizarre events. Meanwhile, the girl watches him from afar, her eyes sparkling with a newfound sense of admiration and curiosity. Standing beside her suitcase, she remains rooted to the spot long after the teacher has vanished from sight. She ponders whether he truly failed to realize the significance of their meeting as she touches her chin. Back inside the academy, the bustling teacher's room is filled with staff members wrapping up their final duties. Washio, slumped at his desk, ignores the cheerful invitations from his colleagues to join them for a drink. Suddenly, Limnoa sensei approaches and dumps a stack of intermediate magic questionnaires onto his already crowded workspace. Looking up with a weary gaze, Washio acknowledges the arrival of the arrogant elf who demands more work. The elf dismisses Washio's feeble excuses about cleaning, insisting that he focus on the task assigned to him. Limnoa sensei continues to boast about his prestigious consulting work and his recent triumph in a major magic tournament. Forced to maintain a polite facade, Washio offers a hollow compliment about the honor of assisting such talent. A cold and mocking glint flickers in the elf's eyes as he looks down upon the struggling teacher. As the arrogant elf sweeps out of the room, Washio is left questioning if he was just mocked. Walking away with a cruel smirk, Limnoa sensei ridicules the man he considers to be utterly miserable and pathetic. Late into the evening, Washio labors over the endless paperwork, his face dripping with sweat from the pressure. Eventually, night falls over the silent kingdom, while the exhausted teacher finally steps out into the night. Passing by a lively tavern filled with the sounds of laughter, he feels the gnawing hunger of a long day. He pauses momentarily to listen to the patrons ordering rounds of beer, his own stomach grumbling in response. Despite the temptation, he turns away, acknowledging that his empty pockets cannot afford any of these simple luxuries. Finally, he disappears into the shadows of a dark archway, heading toward his home in the quiet city streets. Reaching his modest home, Washio unlocks the door under the quiet cover of the starry night sky. Startled by a sudden greeting, he finds his elderly housekeeper still awake and waiting for his return. She kindly offers him a bag of dinner leftovers, apologizing for the late hour as he accepts them. When she asks why he doesn't find a wife to cook for him, Washio's expression becomes momentarily contemplative. They share a light-hearted laugh together as he jokes that a low-ranking teacher like himself has no chance. Wishing her a pleasant good night, he finally heads toward his private quarters with his meager meal in hand. Once alone, the weary lines on his face deepen as he reflects on the heavy burdens of his life. Stepping over a discarded glass bottle, he moves deeper into the sanctuary of his small and cluttered room. The space is a chaotic mess of books, trash, and laundry, revealing the disarray of his personal life. Exhausted, he collapses onto the edge of his unmade bed, clutching the small bag of food tightly. He ravenously bites into the simple sandwich, the only comfort at the end of another long and grueling day. Lying back among the rumpled sheets, he continues to eat while staring blankly at the dimly lit ceiling. His eyes remain fixed on nothingness as silence fills the room, his thoughts drifting far away from the present. Kicking off his heavy boots, he prepares to wash away the day's grime before finally seeking much-needed rest. Stepping behind the thin shower curtain, his silhouette is visible through the steam as the water starts running. Under the warm spray, he recalls his former life as a hopeless office worker more than 10 years ago. Memories of commuting in Japan clash with images of his sudden teleportation and subsequent rise as a hero. He vividly remembers walking through a desolate wasteland of ruins after being hailed as a savior from another world. Kneeling amidst the rubble, his younger self protectively held a small, multi-eyed creature, while tears streaked his face. The intense memory of his past determination flashes before his eyes, a stark contrast to his current mundane existence. In his memory, a masked figure takes the small creature away while his younger self watches in powerless shock. He stands alone in the vast darkness of a mysterious facility, feeling the weight of his past failures. Staring into a massive containment tube, he discovers the horrific transformation of the creature he once tried to protect. He wakes up screaming. His eyes bulge wildly. He gasps for air. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he laments his unremarkable life as a common professor who failed expectations. He walks outside alone. Leaning against the cold railing, he watches the moon and accepts his role as just an old magic user. To calm his frayed nerves, he lights a cigarette and takes a long drag while staring into the night. Thoughts of the strange little creatures he once taught flicker through his mind, bringing a brief moment of nostalgia. Exhaling a cloud of smoke, he allows himself to dwell on the happier times from his complicated past. A small, bittersweet smile touches his lips as he concludes that those days were truly his most enjoyable. He extinguishes his cigarette. The stars shine quietly over the sleeping city. Bright sunlight bathes the grand spires of the academy as a new day begins for the weary teacher. Arriving at the teacher's room, he is immediately met with Limnoa's sharp remarks about his unwashed appearance. The arrogant elf insults his scent, while Washio self-consciously sniffs his shirt in a state of mild embarrassment. Amidst the morning chatter, the surprising announcement of a monster girl transfer student catches everyone off guard. While the others gossip, Washio admits his total ignorance regarding the arrival of this mysterious new monster girl. Limnoa Sensei smirks while explaining that monster girls are mutants of various species with superior intelligence. These creatures possess exceptional physical capacity and beautiful appearances that closely resemble young human girls. Meanwhile, Washio laughs awkwardly, admitting his limited knowledge, while Limnoa insists this should be common sense. Limnoa's expression turns stern as he questions how a biology professor could be so ill-informed. Consequently, Washio claims his expertise only covers lower-ranked monsters, while the headmaster prepares an announcement. The conversation shifts to images of the elite future promised by government officials and high-ranking military officers. Suddenly, high-heeled boots step forward. The entire staff watches in stunned silence as the mysterious girl makes her grand entrance. Following this, the headmaster formally introduces the girl to the school, calling it an honor to have her. With a bright smile and a playful salute, she introduces herself as Claudia from the Kraken species. Immediately, male staff members begin whispering about her striking beauty and impressive physical attributes. Simultaneously, Washio freezes in terror, realizing the girl standing before him is the same one from yesterday. Furthermore, Claudia declares she has already chosen her professor despite the headmaster's review period. She walks toward him. As she approaches, the other teachers watch with mixed expressions of jealousy and confusion. Stopping directly in front of him, she greets him warmly with a simple, "Long time no see." Tentacles erupt, grabbing Washio. Claudia beams with pure joy, her heart racing as she gazes upon her chosen professor. She hugs him tightly. Completely overwhelmed, Washio sweatily protests that he has no memory of ever meeting a monster girl. Washio looks bewildered, suddenly wondering if this girl is the same Octopus he once knew from his past. With a mischievous glint in her eye, she leans in close and whispers his name with unsettling familiarity. Memories of epic battles and a fragile creature in a laboratory flash through his mind during the long-awaited reunion. Realization finally strikes the weary professor, connecting the stunning girl before him to the entity from his hero days. They reach out to each other, their hands meeting in a gesture that bridges a decade of separation and change. Claudia softly reminds him of the pivotal moment when he risked everything to save her life from a dark fate. Now transformed into a powerful monster girl, she beams with joy while keeping her professor within her firm grasp. Loud crashing sounds echo across the academy rooftops as the morning sun begins to rise over the kingdom's spires. Panic sets in as Washio sprints through the narrow city streets, desperately trying to avoid being late for class. His breath hitches while he pushes himself forward, his mind still reeling from the shocking revelation about his student. Claudia cheerfully greets her new classmates, who stare in absolute awe at her striking beauty and unique Kraken features. Catching up to him, she offers her beloved teacher a ride to school, her tentacles waving excitedly behind her. Confusion washes over him as a strong tentacle wraps around his waist before he can even offer a response. Terrified, he lets out a desperate scream as they suddenly launch into the air at a breakneck speed. Claudia effortlessly carries him while sprinting across walls, determined to get her professor to the academy on time. Arriving at the destination, Washio slumps over, his body completely spent from the terrifying and chaotic high-speed travel. Settling into the classroom, the girl happily announces her intention to visit him every single morning from now on. He closes his eyes and sighs, finally accepting his new role as the designated teacher for the creature he saved. She smiles broadly with stars sparkling in her eyes, confirming that her search for her savior has finally ended successfully. Washio marvels at how much she has grown, reflecting on the tiny creature she once was compared to now. Other teachers question the director, arguing that allowing the transfer student to choose her own teacher seems unfair. However, the director enthusiastically gives a double thumbs up, insisting that the arrangement is perfectly fine and appropriate. As the decision is finalized, Claudia prepares to leave, while another voice desperately tries to interrupt the proceedings. Limnoa sensei glares with intense malice, questioning why a low-ranked professor was chosen over his own superior status. Claudia immediately steps in to defend her teacher, firmly stating that calling him by his rank is incredibly rude. Stunned by the blunt reprimand, the arrogant elf stands frozen, while those around him begin to whisper in judgment. Sensing the growing hostility, Washio breaks into a nervous sweat, realizing he has inadvertently made a powerful enemy today. Suddenly, a voice calls out his name, pulling the startled professor back to the reality of the quiet classroom. Claudia looks up with concern, asking what is wrong as he distractedly rubs the back of his neck. He quickly dismisses her worries before turning his attention to a mysterious black folder sitting on the desk. Overflowing with genuine excitement, the girl beams while recounting how much she has enjoyed her first few school days. Washio closes his eyes for a moment of quiet reflection, feeling a temporary sense of peace amidst the chaos. Pivoting the conversation, the professor prepares to discuss a more serious matter, while Claudia watches him with curious eyes. He presents a formal document regarding her future career paths, offering a gentle smile to reassure his young student. He explains that as a monster girl, she is destined for a bright future as a high-ranking government officer. A close view of her tightly clenched fist reveals a hidden layer of emotional turmoil regarding these predetermined expectations. Looking down at her desk, she softly admits that she already knew this path was her only real choice. Startled by her melancholy tone, Washio looks at her with a single wide eye, sensing her deep internal conflict. She honestly confesses that she'd learned about her inevitable fate from the constant chatter of her many new classmates. Nearby, students pester her with requests for recommendations, explaining that all monster girls eventually serve the king's department. Students pressure Claudia for recommendations, making her feel the heavy weight of their selfish social expectations. Washio notes that other teachers have likely given her the same standard speech about her bright future. Clenching her hands, she asks her professor if she truly must fulfill every person's high expectations. The teacher listens intently, observing her inner turmoil while considering how to best respond to her. He begins to part his lips, searching for the right words to comfort his distressed young student. Instead, he remains silent for a long moment, hesitating to give her a definitive or easy answer. Eventually, he smiles weakly and suggests that a man like him is poorly suited for giving advice. Claudia's eyes widen in disappointment as her savior seemingly distances himself from her personal struggles and fears. He awkwardly rubs his neck while she questions his dismissive attitude, despite being her teacher in charge. Attempting to lighten the mood, he casually gestures for her to take things easy and stop worrying. She stares down at her desk in somber silence, processing the lack of support from the one person she trusted. School continues into the third period, with students focusing on their essential literary and theoretical magic writing studies. During the fourth period, the class transitions into a practical alchemy session involving brewing and heavy iron cauldrons. Finally, the fifth period combat session concludes, marking the transition from morning training to the lunch hour. A sign outside the cafeteria advertises a nutritious and affordable meal deal for the hungry students. The bustling dining hall fills with people as everyone gathers to eat and socialize during their break. Washio carries a tray with only a few simple sandwiches, reflecting his persistent and dire financial situation. Claudia watches with great concern, asking her professor if such a small meal is actually enough for him. He admits his lack of funds while she embraces him, insisting that poor nutrition is harmful to his health. Suddenly, she pulls out a document and excitedly tells him to look at what she has found. Claudia proudly presents her completed form, unaware that the arrogant elf professor is approaching them from behind. Limnoa sensei looms over them with a dark expression, casting a literal shadow over the students' newfound happiness. Without warning, the elf reaches out and brutally rips the finished document into two useless pieces. He shouts in a blind rage, claiming a monster girl and a low-ranked teacher are a total insult. Looming over Claudia, he demands she reconsider her choice, because her immense talent shouldn't be wasted. He mocks her desire for an ordinary life, laughing at the idea of her rejecting a prestigious future. The girl's lips tremble as she absorbs his cruel words, her shock turning into deep emotional pain. Washio tries to politely interject and de-escalate the tension, but his nerves are visibly frayed. He finds his voice and argues that a teacher must always respect their students' personal wishes. Hearing her teacher defend her, Claudia gazes upward with wide eyes, filled with surprise and growing hope. Limnoa explodes with fury, declaring that ignoring her potential is an unforgivable loss for the entire world. In the background, other students whisper and watch the heated confrontation between the two professors unfold. The elf doubles down on his arrogance, insisting that only an A-rank professor is worthy of her. Washio cowers under the intense pressure of Limnoa's superiority, his confidence beginning to crumble once again. He almost concedes to the elf's logic, reaching for his tie while feeling utterly inadequate for the role. Suddenly, a loud slap echoes through the room as one of Claudia's tentacles strikes the arrogant elf. Limnoa recoils in absolute shock, while the girl's massive tentacles rise up to form a protective wall. She commands the elf to leave her beloved sensei alone, her voice booming with protective and fierce determination. Tension reaches its peak as she prepares to deliver her final word to the man who mocked them. Claudia points her finger and proudly declares that Washio is a great teacher who supported her from the start. Recalling a time of self-hatred, Claudia begins to recount when her teacher first approached her years ago. She reveals the profound lesson he taught her then, whispering the wisdom to know yourself with a smile. While the crowd watches in confusion, she stands her ground against the arrogant elf who mocks her choice. Limnoa Sensei demands an explanation for her cryptic words as she reminds him of her teacher's past wisdom. She explains that true power comes from finding one's unique strengths to use them as an advantage. Stunned, Washio watches his student recite the very philosophy he shared with her a decade ago. A flashback shows the tiny creature she once was, desperately wishing to become human to find happiness. At that time, the innocent creature even confessed its secret dream of marrying its beloved teacher. Despite its deep fears of being hated, the professor kindly reassured the crying creature with warmth, Seizing the moment, he shared a favorite phrase to guide the small octopus toward its own destiny. By holding its head gently, he instructed the creature to know itself instead of chasing false transformations. He urged her to find joy in her own nature, while perfecting the natural gifts she already had. The octopus gazed upward with sparkling eyes, absorbing every word of his heartfelt and life-changing advice. Admitting his own interpretation of the wisdom, the teacher laughed while continuing his encouraging and gentle lesson. This moment ignited a newfound sense of hope within the creature, forever altering the course of its life. He enthusiastically supported her dreams, promising that hard work would eventually lead her to a bright future. In the present, Washio finally understands how his simple guidance helped her fulfill those once impossible dreams. Claudia looks at him with pure devotion, grateful for the man who never stopped believing in her. Consequently, she explains that his unwavering support allowed her to realize the true power of her Kraken abilities. Embracing her savior tightly, she declares that he is the only one worthy of being her teacher. Limnoa sensei trembles with suppressed rage as he struggles to find a counter-argument to Claudia's public declaration. Meanwhile, the surrounding students begin to gossip loudly, questioning if the old Washio is actually the better choice. Their murmurs grow bolder as they describe Washio as harmless, despite his scruffy appearance, while Limnoa stands humiliated. Consequently, the elf professor's face contorts in fury upon hearing the crowd label his arrogance as annoying and wrong. Washio watches nervously as Limnoa's hands shake with a mixture of intense shame and overwhelming frustration. To everyone's absolute shock, the arrogant professor begins to sniffle and cry openly under the weight of his defeat. Limnoa suddenly bolts from the room in tears, shouting a desperate vow of revenge as he flees the scene. Stunned into silence by the bizarre departure, Washio can only stare until Claudia suggests going to find some lunch. As they walk, she gently runs a hand along her powerful Kraken limbs, while reflecting on her incredible journey. She looks up at her savior with a warm smile, expressing her new dream of becoming a teacher herself. Deeply moved by her ambition, Washio feels a surge of genuine happiness regarding his chosen profession and purpose. He realizes he had unfortunately forgotten the simple joy of helping others until his student reminded him today. They continue their stroll through the academy halls, the bond between teacher and student stronger than ever before. Memories of his past guidance to the small creature merge with the beautiful young woman walking beside him now. He chuckles softly, amazed that the very words he spoke 20 years ago have finally returned to him. A peaceful expression settles on his face as he enjoys the quiet companionship of the girl he once saved. Looking down at their feet, he considers the rewarding nature of teaching, despite the constant chaos and many challenges. However, the sentimental mood breaks as Washio desperately begs to borrow money for lunch, while Claudia watches with disbelief. Later in class, the professor proudly introduces Claudia's lethal magical abilities and poison-based powers to the other students. With a cheerful smile, she effortlessly shatters a massive boulder to demonstrate her truly inhuman and terrifying Kraken strength. Limnoa stammers while sweating profusely, unable to find words to counter the overwhelming support for Washio. In the crowded hall, students openly speculate that the old Washio might actually be the better choice. The gathered crowd whispers behind Limnoa's back, noting that Washio is harmless despite his scruffy and old appearance. As criticism mounts, the students label Limnoa's arrogance as annoying and blame him for disrespecting personal wishes. Washio remains humble while adjusting his tie, observing his rival's visible distress with a look of genuine surprise. To everyone's astonishment, the previously boastful elf begins to sniffle and cry under the weight of public humiliation. Screaming a desperate vow of revenge, Limnoa flees down the corridor while students watch his pathetic retreat in awe. Left in the sudden silence, Claudia suggests they finally head to lunch together to celebrate their successful reunion. She reaches out with a firm but affectionate grip, guiding her beloved professor toward the busy academy cafeteria. Reflecting on her journey, she beams with joy while expressing her brand new ambition to become a teacher. A look of profound peace settles on Washio's face as he acknowledges the true happiness found in his work. Together, they walk through the light-filled halls, the teacher regretting that he ever forgot such a simple truth. Their hands brush together during the walk, reinforcing the deep and ancient bond shared between savior and creature. The memory of his past advice to know yourself resonates deeply as he looks at the woman she became. He chuckles quietly, amazed that those life-altering words from 20 years ago have finally returned to him today. A content smile plays on his lips, while he enjoys this fleeting moment of quiet pride and genuine connection. As they approach their destination, he considers the unique and unexpected rewards that come with being a magic teacher. However, the mood shifts as the broke professor desperately begs to borrow some lunch money from his startled student. Leaning in close with a playful smirk, Claudia offers her teacher a special and mysterious massage to ease his tension. Their peculiar and heartwarming journey continues as the bond between teacher and student enters a brand new chapter. Claudia leans in to whisper a tease, causing Washio to blush as he feels her close proximity. A slimy tentacle slithers much lower, making the poor professor tremble with a mix of fear and confusion. Laughing brightly, the girl reveals she was only joking, completely unaware of the heart attack she nearly caused. She explains that being 16 human years old requires her to practice her charms on her favorite person. Moving even closer, she boldly asks if her attempt at being seductive was successful in capturing his attention. Panicking, Washio tries to change the subject by frantically pointing out that the next class is starting soon. To assist him, Claudia uses her long tentacles to effortlessly reach the very top of the massive chalkboard. The teacher marvels at her range, stunned to learn her limbs can extend up to 3 meters in length. He commends her incredible utility before quickly apologizing for his clumsy and potentially offensive choice of words. A close-up view shows the details of her school uniform while she prepares to respond to his kind words. She smiles contentedly, agreeing that her unique Kraken physiology makes many difficult tasks much easier to manage. Washio notes the impressive flexibility of her limbs, which seem capable of stretching and shrinking at her command. Wrapping a tentacle around his neck, she demonstrates her strength, which is capable of splitting solid stone effortlessly. The poor professor freezes in terror, while cold sweat beads on his face during the sudden and tight grip. However, she reveals they are ideal for massages, leading to an intense session that makes Washio scream loudly. She recalls working as a professional masseur after their separation, building a solid reputation through her unique skills. Finding the experience unexpectedly pleasurable, the professor sighs in relief while his student watches him with pride. Following the encounter, a hand grips an eraser and begins to clear the dusty chalkboard for the next lesson. Leaning in with a mysterious and dark expression, she boldly offers her beloved teacher a different kind of massage. Far away, a grand carriage arrives at the city gates as a mysterious woman wonders if he remembers her. A mysterious woman in a sun hat calls out to Washio sensei with a gentle and knowing smile. Deep in sleep, the professor suffers through a vivid nightmare about warm and slimy fish-scented tentacles. Awakening to his rare annual day off, Washio celebrates his freedom with joyful shouts outside the academy. Despite the beautiful weather, his aging back begins to ache painfully as he wanders through the busy town. Suddenly, a woman wearing a large straw hat approaches and places a firm hand on his weary shoulder. Startled by her sudden and intense proximity, the panicked teacher jumps back while demanding to know her identity. With a cheerful expression, she greets her former savior with a warm and familiar "long time no see." Looking down at the ground in confusion, Washio still struggles to recognize the striking figure standing before him. She laughs softly while covering her mouth, admitting that her physical appearance has changed significantly over the years. To prove her identity further, she daintily lifts the hem of her long white dress with a graceful motion. The professor stares in absolute silence, his mind racing to connect this elegant woman to his ancient memories. She takes a confident step forward on the cobblestone path, her presence commanding the full attention of everyone nearby. Leading her into a modest local eatery, Washio watches as she marvels at the tiny size of the establishment. She points upward at a decrepit and dusty chandelier, commenting on its ruined state to the extremely nervous waiter. Her honesty continues as she bluntly questions if a dirty wooden barrel is truly meant to be her seat. Terribly embarrassed, the teacher offers frantic apologies to the irritated staff while the girl makes herself at home. The waiter eventually relents, noting that Washio has never brought a beautiful woman to the restaurant before. Soon, she ravenously bites into a skewer of grilled meat, savoring the simple and rustic flavors of the town. Blossoms appear to float around her as she experiences the overwhelming and savory delight of her first real meal. While other patrons gawk at her beauty, she describes the dry meat as the tastiest thing she's ever eaten. Washio sighs and asks the little spider to stop insulting the establishment while they sit at the table. Aria firmly retorts that she is no longer a small spider, proudly claiming her new human identity and name. Nearby patrons overhear her name and comment on its elegance, noting that it fits her beautiful appearance perfectly. Washio reminisces with a smile about the once shy spider who used to hide in the classroom corner. She looks back on those difficult times with a somber expression while holding a representation of her former self. They share a quiet moment at the table, with Aria attributing her incredible transformation to her teacher's words. While Washio drinks, Aria asks about his teaching and wonders what magic he currently shares with his students. Aria pauses her meal with a look of surprise when Washio mentions that he teaches biology nowadays. He notes that things have changed significantly since their time together, his expression turning somewhat melancholic and reflective. A close-up captures her glimmering eyes as she listens intently to his words during their shared lunch date. He mentions the naive small octopus she once was, contrasting her past innocence with her current formidable presence. While she continues to eat, Washio reflects on how she successfully managed to evolve into a powerful monster girl. Aria displays a slightly irritated and flustered expression while chewing her food, noting their relationship feels rather weird. She continues eating in silence while Washio observes her, noticing her enduring attachment despite her new physical form. Suddenly, Aria enthusiastically orders another beer and demands the owner bring the most expensive items on the menu. The table is soon left with empty plates and an empty mug, signaling the conclusion of their hearty meal. As they walk outside, Washio laughs while worrying about his budget after treating her to such a feast. Noticing the late hour, he offers to escort her, but she politely declines while showing her stylish footwear. A grand horse-drawn carriage suddenly arrives in the alleyway, revealing the girl's surprisingly high social status and wealth. As she departs, she gazes back with a lingering doubt, wondering if her savior still truly remembers her. An elegant lady in a sun hat leans in close, softly asking Washio-sensei to reveal his deep thoughts. She smiles with a warm and knowing gaze, expressing how truly glad she was to see him today. In a separate moment, Washio celebrates his rare day off with a loud and joyful shout of freedom. While wandering the town streets, his back begins to ache, forcing him to admit he cannot move anymore. In an instant, the woman in the straw hat reaches out and firmly grips his weary shoulder from behind. Startled by the unexpected contact, he screams in total panic while asking the stranger to identify herself immediately. With a playful wave, she greets her former savior and explains that it has been a very long time. Falling onto the ground in shock, the professor stares up at her, still completely unable to recognize her. She giggles while explaining that she has changed significantly since they were last together many years ago. To provide a hint about her true form, she gracefully lifts the frilled hem of her white dress skirt. Washio remains frozen amidst the busy crowd, his face pale with confusion as he tries to process everything. A close-up focus on the ruffles of her garment highlights the physical transformation she mentioned during their reunion. Leading her into a tiny local restaurant, he watches as she marvels at the establishment's surprisingly small size. While the waiter prepares a table, she bluntly points out the ruined and dusty state of the overhead chandelier. Her honest critiques continue as she questions why a dirty wooden barrel is meant to be her seat. A waiter grumbles about the girl's rudeness, while the mortified man offers a series of frantic apologies. Softening his tone, the employee decides to be considerate, since the professor finally brought a beautiful girl along. She hungrily devours a large skewer of grilled meat, ignoring the surroundings to focus entirely on her food. Blossoms fill the atmosphere as she chews happily, savoring the rich and savory flavors of the simple meal. Tragically, the peaceful afternoon is shattered when a nearby church erupts into flames, causing mass panic and screams. Panic erupts as the roaring flames engulf the church, leaving the townspeople in absolute terror. Huddled together in fear, the survivors watch helplessly while the inferno spreads rapidly through the building. Sobbing children cling to one another, their faces streaked with tears as the massive structure burns. A frantic nun screams for someone to save a child trapped inside, fighting against those holding her back. Aria learns the fire started from children playing with candles, her expression hardening with immediate concern. Desperation fills her heart as she silently begs for a way to save the innocent life inside. The nun's tearful pleas continue, her grief and helplessness visible as she prays for a miracle. With a determined look, Aria steps forward and promises to take care of the dangerous rescue mission. Despite the warnings from the crowd, she bolts toward the entrance of the towering, burning cathedral. She bursts through the front doors, disappearing into the thick black smoke and intense, searing heat. Inside the chapel, the air is heavy with ash as she searches through the blinding fire. Though her water magic is rusty, she realizes she must act immediately to save the child. Calling out into the chaos, Aria navigates through the crumbling archways as the fire roars around her. The interior is a nightmare of collapsing pews and falling timber, crackling with the heat of the blaze. Shouting into the smoke-filled room, she desperately tries to locate the missing boy among the ruins. A faint sound of coughing catches her attention, causing her to focus her search on a specific corner. Her heels click against the floor as she steps over burning debris, nearing the source of the sound. Suddenly, she discovers a small boy lying motionless beneath a heavy fallen beam in the center. The child gasps for breath, barely conscious and severely affected by the thick, suffocating clouds of smoke. Reaching deep within, Aria prepares to unleash her power to protect the boy from the surrounding fire. Aria carefully carries the unconscious child through the smoke, shielding him from the intense heat of the blaze. Gently holding the boy close to her chest, she reassures him that everything will be okay now. She hesitates, realizing her destructive lightning magic is far too powerful to use safely within such close quarters. Her eyes scan the environment desperately, searching for a safer way to combat the roaring and merciless inferno. Fearing the boy might get seriously injured by a stray blast, Aria struggles to find a precise solution. In that critical moment, a sudden and powerful surge of magical energy begins to swirl through the air. A massive torrent of water suddenly erupts from the ground, surging upward to quench the hungry flames above. Magic circles glow intensely as a seasoned hand expertly channels an immense amount of high-level elemental power. Crackling electricity dances around the casting hand, while a hidden legend finally prepares to reveal his true strength. Invoking a forbidden spell called World Over Water, the professor summons the spirit of a grand skeletal dragon. With a single commanding gesture, Washio unleashes a monumental wave that completely envelops the entire burning church structure. Stunned by the overwhelming display, Aria watches as the fire is instantly extinguished by the incredible tidal force. She marvels at the tremendous power of her sensei, realizing his magical prowess has not diminished over time. The man stands tall as his legendary title, the Golden Eagle of the Kingdom, is finally mentioned again. Despite his heroic feat, he simply smiles and insists he is just a humble biology teacher these days. The tension breaks as he suddenly winces, complaining about the stiff shoulders and aches of an old man. Inside the church, a serene aquatic paradise remains where magic fish now swim peacefully through the flooded halls. The once destructive fire is replaced by a shimmering, watery dome that protects the sacred building from further damage. Townspeople stand in total awe as they witness the miracle of the church being completely surrounded by water. A confused baker approaches the scene, questioning if the modest teacher was truly the one responsible for the magic. Aria drags the boy through the debris, her tentacles providing the necessary leverage for the difficult rescue mission. Safely on her back, she whispers to the child that the danger has finally been dealt with. She considers using her lightning magic, but fears its raw power would cause the boy further harm. Her gaze remains steady as she monitors the child's breathing while navigating the smoke-filled ruins. Realizing the potential for injury, she remains cautious while searching for an exit through the heat. Suddenly, her tentacles lash out with incredible precision, clearing a path through the crumbling stone of the church. A refreshing surge of water cascades through the building, instantly cooling the air and quenching the fire. Washio calmly buttons his shirt as the intense pressure of his hidden power begins to dissipate slowly. A sharp, clawed hand extends outward, revealing the terrifying nature of the magical entity summoned by the professor. Invoking World Over Water, Washio stands before his skeletal dragon summon, while magic circles glow with power. The golden eagle unleashes a monumental wave that completely drowns the inferno and protects the sacred structure. Aria's eyes widen in absolute amazement as a powerful magical strike clears the remaining smoke away. She notes that even after 20 years, her savior's magic is still just as tremendous and awe-inspiring. The truth is revealed. The humble teacher is actually the legendary Golden Eagle, the kingdom's highest-ranking magician. He smiles humbly, declaring that his hero days are over, and he is simply a biology teacher now. However, the strain of such magic causes the old man to wince from a sudden, sharp shoulder pain. The church interior is now a tranquil aquatic sanctuary, with the once destructive fire completely replaced by cool water. Small magical fish glide through the flooded aisles, completing the bizarre but peaceful transformation of the ruins. Outside, a group of confused townspeople stare in awe at the church, which is now surrounded by water. A local baker approaches the scene, questioning if the scruffy professor was truly the one who used magic. Aria confirms to the young girl that the magical fish are indeed products of a powerful spell. Enraptured by the display, the girl laughs with pure delight as the translucent fish swim through the air. Aria's gaze lingers on the child's floral crown, her mind drifting back to a very similar memory. This beautiful wreath of flowers serves as a bridge to a forgotten time in her own mysterious life. 10 years ago, a younger Washio placed a crown on a small creature, offering words of comfort. The tiny creature realized then that magic wasn't just for power, but for spreading genuine human happiness. Aria's eyes soften with emotion as she finally connects the pieces of her long and complicated past. Darkness momentarily clouds her vision as she dwells on the deep significance of that singular, kind gesture. She remembers receiving the gift with wonder, the petals feeling light against her small and fragile frame. Hanging from a single thread, the little spider creature chirped its sincere thanks to the noble magician. Washio looked perplexed when the spider questioned why he bothered giving flowers to a monster like her. It didn't understand why he insisted on teaching magic to those who had never asked for it. The young man paused to reflect, preparing to share the core philosophy that drove his every action. He explained that his ultimate secret to a meaningful life was the simple act of selfless giving. Whether it was a bouquet of flowers or a gentle smile, making others happy rewarded the giver. He promised the small creature that finding joy in others would eventually become its own life's meaning. Wide-eyed and inspired, the little spider listened intently as its worldview began to shift forever. This pivotal lesson from the past continues to resonate through the silent corridors of her modern mind. Aria smiles warmly in the present, acknowledging that she became a teacher to follow in his footsteps. Even now, Washio-sensei continues his journey of giving, quietly impacting every life he encounters in this world. The curious little girl asks Aria to demonstrate some more of her incredible and beautiful magic abilities. Outside, the brilliant sun shines down upon the quiet academy buildings during a peaceful afternoon break. Rumors spread rapidly throughout the hallways as students discuss the heroic deeds from the previous night. They whisper that a monster girl named Aria was the one who bravely extinguished the church fire. Aria smiles knowingly upon hearing the gossip, observing how quickly stories circulate within the school grounds. She stands tall in her new uniform, adjusting to her role as a student at the prestigious academy. Aria privately clarifies that Washio was the true hero who used magic to stop the blaze. Pouting, she teases her sensei about his historically poor aptitude with water magic in the past. Claudia joins the conversation, expressing her own desire to have witnessed the professor's legendary strength firsthand. Aria notes that the teacher looks more muscular than before, while the amount of magical fish has increased. Washio walks toward them from down the hall, curiously asking if they were discussing the distant past again. He offers a warm and gentle look, pleased that his two students are finally starting to bond well. A close-up captures his shimmering eyes, reflecting a moment of quiet pride as he looks at his students. Grateful for his past kindness, Aria curtsies and thanks him once again for helping her become a monster girl. She surprises the teacher by presenting a beautifully wrapped gift as a sincere token of her lasting appreciation. Aria smiles warmly while repeating the lesson that the ultimate secret to living is selfless giving. Washio holds the small package and asks for permission to open it, while Aria warmly encourages him. Washio's expression transforms into pure delight as he gazes upon the meaningful and unexpected present he just received. Seeing the two bond so closely, Claudia watches from the background with a clearly frustrated and jealous expression. Finally, Aria reaches up to fasten the new tie around his neck, completing the exchange with a smile. Aria adjusts the new tie she gave Washio, confidently stating that she knew it would fit him perfectly. While the professor begs the girls to let him go, other students watch the noisy scene from the hallway. Aria stands formally as Washio reviews her future planning form, which indicates her intent to join the Magic Guard. He reviews the document with a thoughtful expression, acknowledging that her magical abilities are truly amazing among students. Washio offers a warm and gentle smile, promising to do everything within his power to support her future dreams. Joyfully, Aria lunges into another tight hug, leaving her teacher flustered by the sudden display of affection in public. Later, Washio sits at his desk while the teacher's room remains busy with various magical staff members and paperwork. He thinks about his students with pride, glad to see that both Claudia and Aria are focused on themselves. Suddenly, an arrogant elf teacher boasts about his exceptional student and their certain victory in the upcoming spring competition. The boastful teacher briefly looks dejected, while the conversation around him continues to focus on school faction battles. Recovering his ego, the elf claims his faction will win everything since they have remained undefeated for 5 years. Washio observes the excitement of his fellow teachers from his desk, deciding that their competitive games are not his business. Out in the courtyard near a large fountain, Claudia and Aria begin discussing the prestigious duties of the Magic Guard. They share a laugh as Claudia reminds Aria of the time she used to bring worms to eat at school. Aria turns the discussion towards serious goals, asking Claudia what she specifically plans to do with her talented life. With stars in her eyes, Aria excitedly declares her desire to become a teacher, just like her beloved sensei. Claudia beams at her friend, noting that wanting to teach both humans and monsters together is a wonderful dream. Nearby students pause as a sweet fragrance fills the air, wondering if a flower spirit is nearby in the courtyard. The two girls celebrate their shared ambition together, just as a group of intimidating older students approaches them suddenly. A confident senior extends an invitation, asking the first-year students if they would like to join his powerful faction. Claudia and Aria listen with visible skepticism as a group of self-important seniors approaches them in the courtyard. A flamboyant second year named Frederick introduces himself as a member of the elite Limnoa faction group. He explains that their group studies various magical invocations to improve their collective power and efficiency together. Uncertain about the proposition, the two girls carefully consider the true meaning of a magic study group. Frederick continues his pitch with a charming smile, promising that joining his team will be an incredibly fun experience. He boasts that his group can make them 1,000 times stronger to help them shine as elites. Leaning in closer, the senior student asks for their final decision regarding his generous and exclusive offer. Without a moment of hesitation, Claudia delivers a blunt and cold refusal that leaves the senior completely speechless. Frederick stammers through a confused apology, clearly wounded by the unexpected and total rejection of his group. Aria adds that it simply isn't right for others to dictate what a person should do with themselves. Another student tries inviting them to her home instead, but Claudia immediately shuts down that proposal as well. Explaining her preference, Aria admits she dislikes large gatherings and honestly isn't very skilled at performing magic. Refusing to take no for an answer, Frederick begs for another chance, while reaching out toward the girls. He suddenly challenges them to a magical duel to settle the matter once and for all right there. Confusion washes over Claudia as she questions the bizarre rules of the duel he has just proposed. Ignoring her doubt, Frederick begins chanting a powerful incantation to summon the formidable spirits of water. He unleashes a torrential magical attack, commanding the surging water to bring him a quick victory. A massive wall of water rises high into the air, threatening to swallow the two young students whole. Displaying her terrifying strength, Claudia effortlessly slices through the incoming wave with her powerful Kraken tentacles. Frederick stares in absolute horror as the sheer scale of the first-year student's power is finally revealed. Frederick claps and praises Claudia's counter, calling her a wonderful monster girl for handling his wave. Claudia stands her ground with a cold expression, her powerful Kraken tentacles resting firmly on the ground. Aria pouts and asks Frederick to show them his own magic, now that they've already rejected him. Frederick steps forward as a massive, clawed beast begins to materialize from the shadows of his feet. A large, furry creature's head emerges near the building, its presence marked by an ominous and heavy thud. The camera focuses on the Academy's stone crest, highlighting the prestigious setting of this intense magical encounter. Back in the classroom, Limnoa Sensei explains that magical invocations appear from a summoner's shadow during an invocation. The elf professor maintains a serious and focused gaze while continuing his deep lecture on the principles. A close-up reveals the sharp, snarling teeth of the summoned beast, showcasing its intimidating and savage nature. The full image of Frederick's magic power is revealed as a giant, muscular wolf pulsing with energy. Aria's eye widens in surprise as she questions whether the massive beast before her is actually a wolf. Claudia remains calm and observant, her sharp eyes scanning the terrifying werewolf that has just been summoned. Limnoa's lecture continues, explaining that these manifestations naturally match the rank of one's inner magic ability. Frederick stands proudly beside his massive wolf avatar, showcasing the sheer scale of his rank A power. The werewolf looms over the courtyard, its muscular form and feral aura representing Frederick's intense magical spirit. Looking directly at the girls, Frederick confidently asks if they are surprised by his impressive display. The Academy's emblem hangs on the wall, overlooking the classroom where the lecture on magic rank continues. Limnoa Sensei emphasizes that the importance of these creatures lies in their size rather than their specific shape. A diagram compares a rank A giant cat to a rank E mouse, illustrating that size equals power. Limnoa holds a finger to his lips, concluding that one can know a user's power just by looking. Frederick looks on with a smug expression, while bystanders react with shock in the background. From above, onlookers whisper about how much Frederick's magical beast has grown over the last 2 years. Aria's eyes narrow as she carefully observes the manifestation, processing its actual magical strength and presence. She concludes that based on its current size, the creature should only be ranked as C or B. Frederick urges them not to jump to conclusions, offering to demonstrate the true depth of his magic. He begins a dramatic recitation, calling upon the spirit of ice to manifest the absolute zero dagger. An enormous ice knife appears in the sky, looming over the girls with its massive and intimidating scale. The gigantic magical construct begins its rapid descent, aimed directly at the center of the training area. Claudia remains composed, her powerful tentacles coiling as she prepares to confront the incoming icy threat head-on. With a thunderous crash, the massive ice structure shatters into pieces upon impact with Claudia's incredible strength. Fragments of frozen magic rain down, while Frederick stands confidently across from the unfazed monster girls. Claudia looks on through the falling shards, her expression remaining entirely unimpressed by the senior student's display. Frederick smirks, asking the first years if the sheer size of his magical construct was enough to surprise them. He boasts that his perfect recitation is the secret to making his high-rank magic even more powerful. Holding a bouquet of roses, he explains that their supervisor can triple his power through perfect recitation. Extending his hand with an arrogant grin, he invites the monster girls to join his elite group. Despite his grand efforts, both Aria and Claudia stare back at him with looks of total indifference. Nearby students gossip about the display, believing Frederick's magic to be superior to that of any monster girl. Both girls look completely bored, bluntly stating that the senior's display was actually quite disappointing to them. Compared to Washio Sensei's legendary and overwhelming power, Frederick's magical attempt feels like a pathetic, weak spell. Aria raises her hand to stop Frederick mid-sentence, signaling her final decision regarding his persistent faction offer. With a bright laugh, she firmly refuses his proposal and declares her loyalty to Washio Sensei's guidance. Frederick is visibly stunned, immediately ridiculing their choice by labeling their teacher a boring and useless old man. A sharp glare flashes in Aria's eyes as she processes the senior's blatant disrespect toward her beloved savior. Claudia also narrows her gaze, her expression turning into a cold mask of silent and growing fury. Smirking arrogantly, Frederick suggests the girls only chose Washio because they are repaying some secret, ancient favor. He continues his insults, theorizing that the teacher threatened them into submission in exchange for their evolution. The senior laughs while calling Washio a creepy guy, mocking his E-rank status with total and utter disdain. Suddenly, the air around the arrogant student shifts violently as a powerful force begins to surge forward. A massive explosion of magic erupts with a thunderous roar, sending shockwaves through the entire academy courtyard. Frederick gasps in pure terror, his eyes bulging as he faces an overwhelming power he never expected. Looking down with shadows over her eyes, Aria notes that everyone in the Limnoa faction behaves exactly alike. Claudia explodes with rage, unleashing her massive tentacles while screaming her intense hatred for his insults. Nearby students panic, watching in absolute awe as the first year's incredible magic destroys the surrounding environment. Amidst the chaos, Claudia defends her unique appearance while Aria urges her to maintain her composure and temper. Left shaking and sweating, Frederick's previous arrogance evaporates instantly under the weight of the girl's intense killing intent. Aria demands an immediate apology, her presence magnified by the terrifying and massive skeletal spirit looming behind her. The senior stares in paralyzed horror, finally witnessing the true and unbridled potential of a high-tier monster girl. Thick smoke clears to reveal the aftermath of the ninth period's chaotic and high-stakes magical confrontation. Onlookers are left stunned by the scale of Claudia's tentacles, finding them both terrifyingly large and strangely beautiful. Aria's spider legs twitch menacingly as onlookers comment on the creepy yet impressive nature of her monster girl form. Meanwhile, Frederick remains frozen in fear, sweat pouring down his face as he stares at the overwhelming power before him. Looming over the senior, Aria and Claudia demand an immediate apology for the insults directed at their beloved teacher. Consequently, Frederick looks on from behind, his mind reeling as he finally grasps the true, terrifying scale of monster girl power. Then, with a menacing aura and cracking sounds, Aria leans in close to ask if he is even listening to her. Furthermore, her eyes burn with an intense flame as she repeats her demand for a quick apology for his rude remarks. Utterly broken by the pressure, the arrogant senior trembles while struggling to form a coherent response to their threat. High above the courtyard, smoke billows from the remains of a tower that was just obliterated by the girls. Nearby, students gather in the corridors, whispering in total awe about the amazing magical outburst they just witnessed from afar. Suddenly, Washio and Limnoa Sensei burst onto the scene, demanding to know if everyone is safe after the massive explosion. Immediately, Limnoa Sensei stares in disbelief at the ruins of the tower, his voice trailing off as he processes the destruction. Looking up at the crumbling stonework and thick clouds of dust, the elf professor lets out a cry of shock. Soon, his eyes narrow with a dangerous glint, his gaze shifting toward the students as he searches for the culprit. Confronting the girls directly, Limnoa Sensei demands a full confession, while Aria criticizes his habit of jumping to conclusions immediately. In response, Claudia points an accusing finger back at the senior, fiercely arguing that Frederick was the one who started it. The tension reaches a breaking point as the physical gesture of accusation punctuates her sharp and defensive retort to Limnoa. Moreover, her face contorts with a mixture of anger and confusion, her eyes wide as she prepares for the next development. Unexpectedly, Frederick kneels and confesses his love for Claudia, leaving everyone in the courtyard completely stunned by his sudden change. Blushing profusely, he laughs while praising her explosive magic, declaring that monster girls are truly incredible and unique creatures. Finally, he marvels at her strength, noting she achieved such power despite wearing a limiting ring and no spell recitation. Frederick blushes amidst roses, confessing that he has finally discovered the true meaning of love. Shocked to her core, Claudia can only stare in horror as he suddenly proposes an engagement. Aria fiercely rejects the idea of a lover's quarrel, while the teacher demands an official apology letter. Consequently, the group begins to move through the courtyard as the teachers observe the students' chaotic interaction. Limnoa sensei smirks coldly, mocking Washio's clear inability to maintain order as the professor in charge. Defending his students, Washio smiles awkwardly and insists they must have had a very good reason. He admits he should perhaps be stricter while leading the troublemakers away from the scene of destruction. Suddenly, a firm and controlling hand is placed onto Washio's shoulder. Limnoa sensei leans in with a dark gaze, offering to take charge of the monster girls himself. The group continues their long walk through the academy's stone corridors toward the administrative offices. A sinister and calculating smile spreads across the elf's face as he watches them depart. Washio notes Frederick's annoying persistence, begrudgingly acknowledging it as a minor virtue of the senior student. They eventually arrive at a quiet office to begin the formal process of writing their apology notes. Frederick presents his finished letter with a smug grin, barely managing to address his teacher with respect. Speaking with uncharacteristic formality, he claims to have reflected deeply on his reckless and impulsive actions. He casually mentions that his usual supervisor covers his mistakes, leaving the monster girls absolutely disgusted. Finally finishing his task, Frederick excuses himself with a polite bow that feels entirely hollow and fake. Pausing near Claudia, the senior student prepares to deliver one last unsettling and personal remark. He vows to save her from Washio's brainwashing one day, ignoring her blunt and angry rejection. Turning to Aria, he cruelly declares he could never love a spider, because insects are a definite no. Frederick ignores Aria's irritation, arrogantly persisting with his invitation for the monster girls to join his elite faction. Finally leaving the room, the senior student waves a cheerful goodbye, while the others remain at the table. Washio watches them depart with a warm smile, commenting lightheartedly on the vibrant and energetic nature of youth. Both girls glare at him in unison, bluntly asking if he is blind to the senior's obvious arrogance. Ignoring their anger, Washio suggests that the handsome senior and Claudia actually make a very good-looking pair together. The professor's eyes drift momentarily as he reflects on his own role compared to the younger students' lives. Suddenly, Claudia closes the distance between them, her sudden proximity leaving the startled teacher completely frozen and breathless. She pouts deeply while looking into his eyes, honestly confessing that she hates this specific, insensitive side of him. Demanding compensation for her hurt feelings, she insists they go on a date immediately after his classes end. Aria pauses her writing and watches the scene with a mix of surprise and silent observation from nearby. Looking toward the exit, Aria notes with frustration that the arrogant senior didn't even offer a sincere apology. They remain inside the student counseling room, finalizing the paperwork required for their recent magical outburst in courtyard. Washio adopts a stern tone, strictly forbidding the girls from using their powerful magic outside of scheduled classes. Beaming with anticipation, Claudia whispers a final reminder about their upcoming date before heading off to her lessons. Later that day, the heavy academy doors swing open as the students finally finish their long afternoon classes. The sun begins to set over the town square, casting a warm light on the many local shops. Inside a boutique, Claudia models a charming new dress, while the excited shop assistants shower her with compliments. The employees clap their hands in delight, enthusiastically agreeing that the outfit makes the young Kraken look incredibly cute. Washio stands frozen in absolute shock, his gaze fixed on his student's striking and unexpected transformation into a lady. Looking up with shimmering eyes, Claudia waits expectantly for her beloved sensei to offer his genuine and honest opinion. Aria models an elegant outfit for her teacher, who warmly compliments her striking and cute appearance. Nearby, the enthusiastic shop assistants cheer and applaud, completely enamored by the young spider girl's style. Washio smiles and agrees that both monster girls look charming, though his pockets are likely feeling light. Suddenly, Claudia leans in with a mischievous glint, her physical proximity causing the teacher's heart to race. She holds up another dress, eagerly asking her beloved sensei which color scheme suits her the most. Laughing nervously, the overwhelmed professor suggests that any choice would look wonderful on her. Claudia pouts with annoyance at his indecision, while Aria watches the exchange with a sigh of disbelief. The mood shifts abruptly as the staggering price of 93,000 ryans is revealed to the professor. Sweating profusely, Washio desperately asks about installment plans, while the girls watch his financial struggle with judgment. The monster girls share a look of mutual frustration, clearly disappointed by their teacher's lack of smooth confidence. While walking, Aria questions Claudia's presence, though the Kraken insists she won't miss out on the date. Claudia flashes a dark and competitive smile, declaring that she has no intention of leaving them alone. In the distance, onlookers gossip about the strange trio. Noting that Washio is the girl's designated teacher, local townspeople whisper about how a low-rank level E teacher manages to handle two powerful monster girls. Tension crackles between the two students as they lock eyes in a silent battle for their teacher's attention. A heavy thud echoes through the street as someone approaches the group with a sudden and firm step. Claudia excitedly points toward a crepe shop, dragging a weary Washio along for some afternoon sweets. Aria offers a bite of her strawberry crepe to Washio, while a jealous Claudia fumes in background. Feeling completely stuffed, the professor tries to decline more food, just as a mysterious old man approaches. A drunken man suddenly grabs Washio's shoulder, loudly asking what his former student is doing in town. Washio handles a drunk local who remembers seeing Aria at a tavern, causing her to pout with annoyance. The old man pushes Washio to finally seek a promotion since he now has such impressive students. While enjoying crepes, the girls wonder if their humble teacher feels any jealousy toward his fellow faculty members. They observe that despite their vast differences, the two professors are still officially considered colleagues by the academy. A quiet shadow falls over Washio's face as he processes the comments about his unremarkable professional standing. He laughs it off, claiming that a life as level E without heavy responsibility is actually quite perfect. The local reveals his own past ambitions as he approaches 50, while the girls find his stories utterly pathetic. Noticing how everyone underestimates their savior, the monster girls contemplate ways to restore his tarnished reputation and dignity. Claudia suddenly strikes a pose, revealing she has a bold new proposal to help their beloved teacher shine. Aria quickly catches on, offering a knowing smirk that confirms her total support for whatever plan is brewing. Confused by their sudden energy, Washio asks where they are heading as they begin to walk away together. The girls dismiss him immediately, insisting on a secret conversation while forcing the poor professor to wait elsewhere. Meanwhile, the drunk man continues his lecture on family and finances, while Washio slumps his shoulders in despair. Without warning, the girls cancel the date and bolt away to handle an urgent and mysterious matter alone. Left standing in the busy street, Washio watches their retreating figures with a look of pure, bewildered exhaustion. He eventually sighs in resignation, accepting his sudden freedom with a mix of relief and lingering loneliness. Seeing an opportunity, the old man drags the teacher toward a nearby tavern for a round of drinks. Darkness soon blankets the kingdom as the stars begin to twinkle over the quiet rooftops of the city. Eventually, the grand clock tower chimes to signal the arrival of another busy morning at the magical academy. Washio returns to his routine, eating a meager lunch while observing the bustling classroom filled with hardworking students. A finished meal sits on a tray in the academy dining hall during a quiet afternoon break. Washio enjoys a sandwich while pondering the strange absence of both Claudia and Aria at lunchtime. The silhouette of a student in a pristine academy uniform looms behind the preoccupied and unsuspecting teacher. Aria appears wearing a pair of glasses and greets her sensei with a calm yet focused expression. She immediately presents a formal-looking document and asks her beloved teacher to sign it without delay. Washio stares at the paper in total confusion, his mind racing to understand his student's latest scheme. Proudly, Aria declares her intent to establish the Washio faction to demonstrate his true greatness to everyone. The revelation leaves the professor sweating profusely as he questions why such a group is being created. Aria adjusts her spectacles with a smug grin, while Washio remains frozen in a state of disbelief. Feeling the weight of another impending problem, the exhausted teacher slumps forward and buries his face. He tries to be realistic, reminding Aria that an E-rank magic user cannot officially oversee any faction. Pushing up her glasses, she counters with a confident smirk, insisting that their new goal is entirely possible. She displays a list of fulfilled requirements, revealing that Washio has actually been promoted to D rank already. The professor is stunned by his sudden promotion after 20 long years of total stagnation and neglect. Aria gleefully explains how she threatened to quit the school to force the director into approving her plan. She urges him to sign the document immediately, while the weary man struggles to process the situation. A close-up captures Washio's somber and thoughtful expression as he considers the consequences of his students' actions. He asks if it wouldn't be better to simply avoid creating a new and potentially troublesome faction. Aria looks on with a serious and unwavering gaze, waiting for her teacher to accept her ambitious proposal. Finally, Washio encourages her to broaden her horizons by interacting with other students in existing magic groups. Washio suggests Aria join the Limnoa faction, noting Frederick's persistent invitations and their elite student status. Aria points out their shared hatred for Limnoa sensei, but Washio surprisingly defends the arrogant elf's skill. He explains that Limnoa is merely proud, but is actually an exceptional and highly talented magic teacher. Aria gazes at him with watering eyes, visibly upset by her savior's constant and humble self-deprecation. The professor remains silent, his own sweat reflecting the heavy tension building within the quiet counseling room. Aria laments how he accepts an unfair rank while being a far more wonderful teacher and magician. Tears stream down her face as she confesses her deep frustration with his total lack of personal ambition. Stunned by her emotional outburst, Washio stares at his student while struggling to find the right words. She angrily demands he sign her document instead of offering another useless and tired apology for himself. He looks down with a weary expression, his mind drifting toward the failures of his own complicated past. Memories of a small spider amidst ruins flicker briefly, highlighting the ancient bond they share from long ago. His eyes reflect a profound sadness, the weight of a decade's worth of regret finally catching up. Just as he prepares to speak his true feelings, a loud and familiar voice interrupts the somber moment. Claudia suddenly sprints into the room, waving a letter, her high energy a sharp contrast to the gloom. She hands him an envelope from his landlord, mentioning that the contents seem incredibly urgent and serious. Blankly, Washio takes the paper, his face losing all color as he prepares for more bad news. The letter is an eviction notice, demanding he leave by tomorrow so the landlord's son can manage. Realizing he might be homeless tomorrow at nearly 50, his eyes widen in total and utter panic. Overwhelmed by this sudden catastrophe, the broken professor buries his face in his hands and sobs silently. He looks up with a hollow and dead gaze, the reality of his situation finally sinking in fully. Aria leans in, declaring their desire to study under Washio regardless of his current living situation. She bows deeply, showing her sincere commitment to his mentorship and their future magical faction. Moved by her words, the professor stares at the application with a look of profound disbelief. A small, resolute smile finally touches his lips as he decides to accept their ambitious proposal. Aria erupts with joy, thanking her sensei while the other students watch the emotional scene. He takes a pen and begins the formal process of signing the faction establishment documents. Washio reflects that a supervisor's role is mostly formal, requiring only occasional guidance for students. He admits the prospect of a pay raise and free lodging is an incredible opportunity. Sitting alone, he meticulously works on the paperwork while memories of his monster students surround him. Weariness shows in his eyes as he pours his remaining energy into this new professional endeavor. The pen scratches across the parchment as the final official signature is finally put into place. Suddenly, Aria and Claudia peer at the document and notice something very strange about the handwriting. They scream in frustration upon discovering that their teacher accidentally misspelled his own name as Watsuo. Meanwhile, in the busy hallway, Claudia rushes toward her professor while waving an urgent-looking envelope. She explains the letter arrived at her desk and seems to be of the utmost importance. Washio accepts the message with a growing sense of dread, his expression turning pale and anxious. The note from his landlord demands his immediate departure because management is being transferred to a son. Absolute despair washes over him as he realizes he faces homelessness on the eve of his birthday. Aria enters the director's office, determined to finalize the creation of the prestigious new Washio faction. To her absolute shock, the mustached elf director delivers a blunt and smiling refusal of her request. Claudia angrily confronts the director with her tentacles while demanding to know why their faction was suddenly denied. The director calmly reveals that the Raising Ring research group already exists, shocking both monster girls into silence. Washio looks flustered as Aria scolds him for not mentioning the existing research group much earlier than now. An explanatory graphic details how various school factions explore multidimensional magic methods through unique research themes. Leaving the office in disappointment, the professor closes the door while his students follow him out dejectedly. Aria wonders what their next move will be, since creating their own magic faction has become completely impossible. Realizing his desperate housing situation, Washio worries that he will end up an old man without a home. He concludes that begging the landlord for more time is his only remaining option to avoid immediate homelessness. A set of stylish boots clicks against the stone floor as a familiar person approaches the group again. Frederick reappears with a flamboyant greeting for his honey Claudia, leaving Washio and the girls utterly speechless. The senior student continues to tease a visibly annoyed Claudia, while she demands that he stop calling her honey. Observing the chaotic interaction, the weary professor notes the surprising and uncomfortable proximity between the two students. Frederick offers a hollow apology to the teacher after Claudia expresses her deep offense at his arrogant behavior. Washio slumps his shoulders in total despair, while Aria places a supportive hand on him to offer comfort. Smiling smugly, Frederick delivers a message from Limnoa sensei, while a frustrated Claudia glares from behind him. He explains that the recently destroyed tower housed the Limnoa faction's magic reactor, creating a massive inconvenience. The senior student instructs them to head to the crumbling Tower of Ghosts to find a replacement reactor. He adds that real ghosts are rumored to appear within that old building, terrifying Claudia with the spooky news. Frederick asks if he scared her while leaning in too close, completely ignoring her obvious and growing discomfort. Washio trembles with fear as the weight of his mounting problems finally begins to break his remaining spirit. Aria claps her hands excitedly, suggesting they depart immediately for their new and mysterious mission. Claudia expresses concern about the tower she destroyed, her face reflecting a mix of guilt and genuine worry. Aria offers a sly smile, reminding the professor that they are all in this together now. Washio remains paralyzed by fear, sweat dripping down his face as the gravity of the situation sinks in. Standing before the ruined structure, the professor admits his deep reluctance to enter the ominous tower. The crumbling stone walls of the tower loom ahead, echoing with warnings to stay far away. Shrouded in darkness, the trio enters the building to begin their urgent search for the magic reactor. A heavy footfall resonates through the silent corridor, signaling their cautious progression into the unknown depths. Far above, the Academy's spires sit quietly beneath the clouds while the secret mission begins below. The Academy crest gleams in the light, representing the prestige that is currently at great risk. Frederick reports his progress to Limnoa, confirming he successfully guided his targets toward the trap. Blushing with excitement, the senior student hopes the plan will finally lead Claudia into their elite faction. Limnoa envisions his perfect rescue, imagining himself saving the girls from a terrifying ghost encounter. Laughing triumphantly, the elf professor believes this scheme will break Washio's supposed brainwashing of the girls. The two conspirators share a determined look, their eyes reflecting their shared and selfish ambitions. Limnoa proudly recites the first principle of his faction, emphasizing superior intelligence above all else. Frederick follows by declaring wealth as the second core pillar of their arrogant and elite group. Together, they loudly proclaim pride as the final principle, while striking a coordinated and dramatic pose. They share a sinister laugh, eagerly anticipating the arrival of the monster girls at the designated tower. Limnoa's face contorts into a wicked smirk, vowing to finally take charge and restore the correct timeline. Washio leads the monster girls into the dark, ruined depths of the ancient and ominous Tower of Ghosts. Outside, the crumbling spire of the haunted structure reaches toward the sky, echoing with many dark, forgotten secrets. Inside, Claudia trembles with intense anxiety, her face flushing, as she calls out to her professor in fear. Washio looks up at her with concern, desperately trying to soothe her nerves while they navigate the shadows. Suddenly, she collapses against him, admitting she cannot endure the terrifying atmosphere of the tower any longer. The young Kraken girl lets out a soft, overwhelmed cry while clinging tightly to her beloved teacher's side. Paralyzed by the contact, Washio's mind wanders as he notes the unexpected softness of his student's close embrace. He panics as she presses closer, insisting that physical contact with him is perfectly fine despite his protests. They continue their search through the gloom, their faces illuminated by the faint light filtering through the ruins. Massive cracks and falling debris highlight the instability of the ancient rooms within the haunted magical tower. Fear takes hold as they walk deeper, questioning if they should simply wait outside away from the spirits. Claudia's eyes widen in absolute terror as she senses an ominous presence lurking just out of their sight. A sudden noise startles the group as they stand frozen before a door that begins to creak open. Dark eyes glow from the void as Washio realizes the door is moving entirely on its own power. A massive, shadowy spirit suddenly materializes, letting out a terrifying roar that sends the group into a frenzy. Screaming in unison, Washio and Claudia sprint away as the monstrous entity chases them through the dark halls. Left behind in the chaos, Aria calls out to her friends while watching them vanish into the distance. During the frantic escape, a heavy boot lands squarely on a loose floorboard, triggering a hidden mechanism below. The floor instantly gives way, sending the professor and his student tumbling into a dark and bottomless pit. They plummet through the air with their mouths agape, completely powerless to stop their sudden and dangerous descent. They plummet into a dark abyss while Aria watches helplessly from the edge of the trap. Their bodies tumble through the pitch-black void as gravity takes hold during the sudden fall. Aria leans over the opening, shouting for them to stay calm while she attempts a rescue. Suddenly, the trapdoor above them slams shut with a heavy and ominous thud. Following a rough landing, Washio and Claudia find themselves entangled in a pile on the floor. Claudia begins to blush and breathe heavily, her expression shifting in the dim light. She confesses that her primal monster instincts are starting to take over her rational mind. The sheer power of her untamed instinct suddenly fills the small enclosed space. Terrified, Washio begs her to stay calm and fight against her overwhelming monstrous urges. The physical proximity between teacher and student intensifies as they struggle in the shadows. Claudia insists she is fine, her gaze becoming increasingly focused on her startled professor. With a bold smile, she declares that they are destined to be married one day. Washio screams in absolute shock, his mind reeling from her sudden and unexpected marriage proposal. The young Kraken girl leans in closer, her intentions becoming undeniably clear in the silence. Their bodies press against each other as the atmosphere in the room grows heavy with tension. A single moment of frozen silence passes while they stare into each other's wide eyes. Suddenly, a sharp cracking sound echoes through the chamber as the rear wall begins to splinter. They are both thrown forward as a massive section of the stonework collapses around them. Dust clouds fill the air, while Washio winces from the pain of the sudden impact. Finally, they recover amidst the rubble, the professor checking to see if his student is unharmed. Washio and Claudia discover a secret chamber containing a mysterious and advanced-looking technological device, and inside a large glass capsule, a silent young girl remains suspended in some kind of magical stasis, where she rests with her eyes closed, appearing peaceful despite her strange and unsettling predicament. while a stunned Washio questions her humanity as he struggles to process this shocking sight. But suddenly, a terrifying warning appears, declaring that the room will explode in exactly 60 seconds, leading to immediate panic as the timer begins its descent, forcing them to desperately search for an exit. Meanwhile, the countdown reaches a critical level, while the professor frantically attempts a way out. But terror soon grips their hearts upon realizing that they are completely trapped within the unstable room, as the door remains stubbornly shut while the mechanical voice repeats the final warning of impending explosion. Yet amidst the chaos, the girl in the capsule reflects on the importance of maintaining one's calm, while the ticking clock continues to count down the final precious seconds of their lives together. So in a desperate search for a solution, Washio spots an old instruction manual nearby, and together, they hover over the ancient text, searching for clues to deactivate the deadly countdown mechanism, until Washio's eyes widen in absolute amazement as he finally deciphers the true nature of the device, where an elaborate and ancient magic book lies open, revealing forbidden knowledge and very complex spells. Then he promises to explain everything later, focusing all his remaining energy on stopping the lethal process, as the professor considers his next move with an intense and determined expression on his face, while Claudia gazes at her teacher with a look of pure awe as he prepares his strategy. And with only 46 seconds remaining, Washio slowly approaches the glowing capsule to begin the rescue, finally reaching out a steady hand to touch the glass, preparing to unleash his hidden power. Standing before a grand doorway, Washio's thoughts drift toward the powerful and dark figures of his forgotten past. In a fleeting vision, a horned demon with a blackened mark on its chest looms through the shadows. Tension fills the chamber as a mechanical voice announces that the stasis capsule's activity is finally restarting now. Claudia gasps in relief, her eyes wide with surprise upon realizing the deadly countdown has officially come to halt. Washio closes his eyes and exhales deeply, his body trembling from the massive drain on his inner magical reserves. He admits the ritual exhausted him, explaining he merely followed the complex instructions outlined within the mysterious magic book. Claudia cheers for the legendary Golden Eagle, though Washio begs her to finally retire that 20-year-old hero title. Beaming with pride, she declares her devotion as his student, leaving the professor flustered by her intense and affectionate gaze. Washio sweats nervously, internally scolding himself for letting his thoughts wander during their recent and highly suggestive physical encounter. Pivoting the conversation, Claudia points to the open book on the table and asks about its true magical nature. He identifies the tome as an ancient artifact, likely containing a vast collection of powerful and long-lost magical spells. Despite recognizing a few words, he admits that full comprehension will require a professional and very detailed language analysis. His expression shifts to one of curiosity upon discovering unexpected handwritten notes scattered throughout the margins of the text. Claudia observes her teacher in silence, waiting patiently for him to uncover the secrets hidden within the weathered parchment. Enthusiastically, she suggests using the mysterious magic book as the official study object for their budding new Washio faction. Washio looks startled while they stand together before the glowing capsule, the atmosphere growing increasingly heavy and expectant. Steam rises as the figure within the pod suddenly sits up, catching them both off guard. Paralyzed by shock, teacher and student stare at the girl who has finally awakened from her long, magical slumber. She slowly turns her head, her clear eyes focusing on them for the first time since their arrival here. The girl speaks, asking for her master, while a stunned Washio can only watch her in absolute breathless silence. The mysterious girl acknowledges the situation with a simple "I see," while her eyes remain calm and steady. She slowly steps out from the confines of the glass capsule, her movements mechanical, yet graceful and light. Reclaiming her purpose, she apologizes for her long sleep and asks about her master to resume their research. Washio gazes at a scrap of paper with deep sorrow, the weight of the past clearly visible now. The girl recognizes the handwriting on the note as her master's, creating a heavy silence in the room. She recites her master's final wish to pass his legacy and the girl herself to a new master. The ancient text on the weathered paper outlines a final mission that spans across many long and difficult years. Whispering the word master, she sinks into a melancholy state as she processes her creator's final parting words. Washio offers to take her with them, but she declines while promising to unlock the exit for them. Believing her existence is tied only to her master, she prepares to return to her deep stasis sleep. Washio and Claudia stand in somber silence, watching the lonely figure return to her long and icy slumber. Claudia asks if he truly wants to let her go, sensing the professor's hidden and very complicated emotions. Despite her pleas about his vast magic, he insists he cannot take on such a heavy responsibility now. Walking toward the exit, he claims he is merely a simple biology teacher with no desire for power. Claudia watches him depart with shimmering eyes, heartbroken by his refusal to act as the girl's new savior. Their footsteps echo through the dark chamber as they leave the glowing capsule and the girl behind forever. The professor's expression remains pained, his mind clearly troubled by the choice he just made in that room. The master's final request to continue the magical research alongside the girl lingers in the heavy, silent air. Closing his eyes, Washio struggles against his own inner demons while the burden of the past pulls him. Claudia follows closely behind him, asking one last time if he is truly sure about his heartless decision. Claudia earnestly asks Washio if he truly intends to leave the lonely girl behind in the tower, where the silent automaton closes her eyes, returning to her cold and motionless state of eternal sleep. As Washio turns his back, attempting to escape the heavy emotional burden of the girl's sudden awakening, while the girl settles back into her capsule, her mechanical joints clicking softly in the quiet room. Washio continues his retreat, his footsteps echoing against the stone walls of the dark and haunted tower. But his mind drifts back to the letter's words about finding a talented youth with exceptional power. Identifying the grimoire as one of 7 ancient artifacts guarded by the young sleeping automaton before him, the previous master confesses his magic grew too weak to maintain the girl or the legendary book. Reminiscing about the brilliant days of research they shared together before his time finally came to end, the note begs the next master to add new pages to the grimoire alongside the devoted girl. A pained look crosses Washio's face as he contemplates the significant mission he is currently rejecting. He decides that such powerful artifacts are too much for a simple and humble biology teacher like him. While Claudia watches his departure with a look of pure, unadulterated heartbreak and growing silent despair, she remains at the bottom of the stairs, staring at the man she once considered a hero. Washio begins to ascend toward the exit, determined to leave the girl's tragic fate in the shadows. The automaton rests in total stillness, her face a mask of peaceful yet tragic mechanical indifference once more. Her expression turning desperate, Claudia prepares to make one final, heartfelt plea to change her teacher's mind. She clenches her jaw, her inner turmoil manifesting as she searches for the right words to stay. Running through the dark, Claudia begs Washio to become the girl's master and save her from sleep. Though he feels it is a shame she must sleep, he insists he lacks the power to help. Claudia grips Washio's hands, desperately pleading with him to extend his help once more to the lonely girl. The professor wavers under her intense gaze, while she reminds him of his past as their reliable savior. Washio hesitates, his voice trailing off as he continues to struggle with the heavy weight of the decision. Claudia insists that to her, he remains the same kind and dependable man who always helps those in need. She kneels before him, reaffirming her absolute faith in the man she proudly calls her beloved sensei. Memories of his past guidance surface as she reflects on how his words once helped her accept herself. Her tentacles twitch with emotion, while she continues her heartfelt speech about his enduring and noble character. Aria watches the intense scene, recalling her own lessons as Washio remains visibly shaken by their support. Internally, the professor laments his perceived pathetic nature for needing a student to push him into making decisions. Finally reaching a breakthrough, Washio takes Claudia's hand and accepts the responsibility of being the girl's master. He offers a bittersweet smile, apologizing for being such a clumsy and frequently indecisive teacher to them. Aria promises to reveal her own mysterious past one day, while looking at him with shimmering eyes. She offers him a gentle and encouraging smile, her expression filled with genuine warmth and lasting affection. Together, they look up toward the exit as she assures him that his clumsiness is actually quite charming. Standing before the glowing capsule once more, they prepare to confront the sleeping girl's tragic magical fate. The automaton remains perfectly still, her peaceful features reflecting the ancient and complex magic that sustains her. Washio looks at his students with newfound resolve, his confidence slowly returning under their constant and earnest encouragement. He leans over the pod and confesses he lied, stating there is still one vital task left unfinished. Observing the girl closely, he acknowledges that beneath her mechanical shell, she truly possesses a human heart. He takes her hand, reflecting on the sincere smile from her master that she unfortunately never received. Washio greets the awakening automaton as Alice, offering her a morning filled with newfound light and genuine hope. He smiles warmly while gently holding her mechanical hand, trying to provide comfort in this strange new world. Inviting her to join them, Washio suggests they leave the dark chamber and face the unknown future side by side. Alice looks up with wide, curious eyes, repeating her new name as her internal systems process the input. Washio asks if she likes the name he chose for her, his expression soft and full of paternal kindness. Accepting the designation, she confirms she will update her internal registry to Alice as they move to depart. Alice points to the professor and asks if he is her new master, prompting a flustered confirmation from him. Claudia clings to his arm and proudly introduces him as Washio Sensei, their dedicated and talented Magic Academy teacher. The automaton struggles with the pronunciation, her robotic voice echoing through the chamber as she recites his name. System notifications appear as Alice officially approves Washio as her new master, despite his humble and polite protests. Back at the academy, the director reacts with absolute shock to the news of the discovery in the tower. A detailed summary explains how Washio accidentally found both the legendary grimoire and the guardian automaton by chance. Limnoa erupts in a fit of jealous rage, while Washio calmly confirms the unbelievable events that just transpired. The arrogant elf claims he knew of the artifacts all along, boasting about his superior rank of professor status. Aria leans forward with intense determination, asking the principal to approve the grimoire as their new research subject. Washio accepts the challenge with a weary smile, promising to do whatever it takes to protect his students. Proudly observing his unique group, the professor acknowledges that all three of his new charges are truly exceptional. Claudia and Aria share a moment of mutual satisfaction, happy that their plan to help Sensei is working. Alice firmly reminds them that she is not a student, causing the other girls to react with slight embarrassment. Finally, the director accepts the faction request and designates the haunted ghost tower as their new official residence. Washio and the girls stand dejectedly outside the office after their failed attempt at a new faction. Claudia complains about living with ghosts, but Aria insists they are actually quite friendly entities. Aria explains that she spent time chatting with the spirit while the others were trapped. She laughs, recalling her conversation with the ghost, while Alice and Washio listen with confusion. Aria reveals that Limnoa Sensei has already taken custody of the ghost they encountered earlier. Alice remains silent, her robotic gaze fixed forward as the group prepares for their next task. Washio suggests the girls help Alice find more appropriate clothing for her new life at Academy. While Claudia smiles, Aria notes that Alice's current attire is far too awkward for public school. Washio heads off to handle paperwork for the tower repairs, leaving the girls to bond together. Although Alice prefers to stay with her master, the girls lead her away for secret talk. Alice calls out to Washio, acknowledging her new master as he walks down the stone corridor. With a gentle wave, Washio bids them farewell and promises to see everyone later that evening. The three girls walk together, hand in hand, beginning their new journey as friends and colleagues. Meanwhile, the crumbling ghost tower stands as a testament to the school's long and mysterious history. Washio discusses the renovation plans with dwarven builders while the girls continue their shopping trip. Alice watches the reconstruction efforts at the tower, her systems processing the changes to her home. Construction continues as the girls prepare a surprise for their teacher within the old tower walls. Alice returns to her master wearing a detailed maid outfit, claiming it's the most suitable attire. Local workers gossip about the strange group while Alice explains her choice of serving attire, Claudia excitedly asks Sensei if Alice looks adorable in her brand new and very stylish dress. Washio Sensei smiles warmly, agreeing that Alice's new appearance is truly adorable. Alice remains expressionless, while strange mechanical sensations begin to stir within her internal systems. Claudia playfully pokes Alice's nose while the automaton insists she lacks the capacity to blush. Later, at the ghost tower, Washio warns the group to keep a safe distance from the dangerous construction site. Despite the risks, Alice steps forward and offers her assistance with the difficult restoration efforts. Demonstrating their immense physical strength, the girls effortlessly lift massive wooden beams for the repairs. Aria turns to her teacher with a confident look, asking if he can truly count on them. A nearby pulley mechanism creaks and groans under the intense strain of the ongoing heavy work. Suddenly, Alice's hand clicks open mechanically as she detects the imminent threat of falling debris. She vows to protect her master by eliminating any potential danger lurking within the unstable tower. Activating her advanced combat systems, a targeting reticle appears within her glowing and highly analytical eyes. High above, the pulley system snaps violently, sending a shower of heavy stone blocks plummeting down. Without hesitation, Alice fires a concentrated magical blast from her hand to incinerate the falling rubble. Washio and the builders watch in total speechless horror as the powerful explosion echoes through the air. With the threat neutralized, Alice calmly declares that the elimination of the danger is officially complete. Wisps of smoke rise from her outstretched palm, while the surrounding area falls into an eerie silence. Her mechanical hand retracts with a sharp metallic click as she reassesses the safety of the site. Moving toward her master, Alice gently cups Washio's face between her cold and metallic hands. She asks if he is unharmed, while a jealous Claudia fumes silently in the background nearby. Washio gazes back at the automaton, feeling a strange sense of connection to his new protector. Alice gazes ahead with a neutral expression, her internal systems quietly processing the recent life-altering events. Washio confirms his commitment to the repairs, while Alice expresses her relief that the professor is safe. An elderly woman apologizes, explaining that her son is insisting on throwing the professor out immediately. Washio accepts the news with a forced smile, hoping that the landlord might eventually find it in him to forgive. Alice wonders if she really must leave, her mechanical eyes reflecting the uncertainty of her current living situation. She stands silently in her new maid attire, a guardian waiting for her next set of instructions. Washio laments his lack of funds for an inn, while the girls walk beside him through the streets. He notes his lack of helpful friends as his students observe his growing despair with quiet concern. Claudia suddenly suggests that the professor should simply stay in her room to avoid his housing crisis. The suggestion leaves Washio completely flustered as he tries to find a polite way to decline the offer. Aria joins in, offering her own hospitality and promising to take excellent care of her beloved sensei. Alice remains a silent observer, her clear eyes tracking the intense and competitive conversation between her students. Washio firmly argues that it would be inappropriate for a teacher to reside in a student's private room. Claudia teases him, asking if his refusal stems from being nervous about the close physical proximity. She leans in close to whisper a suggestive question, catching the startled professor completely off guard. Claudia boldly suggests they could lie down together and talk, further adding to the professor's intense embarrassment. A tentacle slithers forward with a mind of its own, signaling the start of another chaotic development. Washio panics as both girls begin to crowd him, begging them to stop their increasingly bold behavior. Aria insists that boundaries between teachers and students shouldn't exist when deep feelings of affection are involved. She offers a playful smile, confessing that she wouldn't mind if something special were to happen tonight. Alice stares intensely, her mechanical eye focusing as she processes the group's increasingly chaotic and noisy social interaction. A soft, whirring sound emanates from her artificial ocular lens, while she carefully analyzes her master's defensive behavior. Suddenly, the automaton firmly instructs Washio not to underestimate her, catching the startled professor completely off guard. In response, Washio boastfully claims to have 100 friends who would help him out in any pinch. Claudia and Aria watch with deep skepticism, while their teacher desperately tries to save face through obvious exaggeration. Darkness falls over the academy grounds as the moon rises high above the silent and historic stone towers. Inside the faculty lounge, Limnoa Sensei delivers a blunt and cold refusal to help his struggling, lower-ranked colleague. Washio desperately begs for assistance in the name of camaraderie, but the arrogant elf remains entirely unmoved by pleas. Nearby, the monster girls note the vast difference in professional ranks, while observing the humiliating and tense confrontation. Limnoa mocks Washio's status, claiming that sharing space with an E-rank magic user makes him feel physically nauseous. With a cruel smirk, the elf professor offers to lend the group his balcony as a pathetic living space. A heavy thud echoes through the room as furniture begins to slide across the floor with surprising mechanical force. To everyone's shock, Alice starts moving a massive bed onto the balcony, while the arrogant elf watches in horror. Limnoa screams in outrage at the literal takeover of his balcony, while Washio calmly accepts the new arrangement. Disgusted by the elf's behavior, the girls grab Washio's arm and insist on leaving the toxic environment immediately. Aria suggests that they have no choice but to share one of their private rooms for the night. The two students begin a heated and playful competition over which room their beloved teacher should eventually stay in. Alice raises her metallic hand, drawing the full attention of the group amidst their loud and energetic bickering. She firmly declares that she is not a student, her robotic logic cutting through the girls' romantic fantasies. Washio and the monster girls stare at the automaton in confusion, wondering what her literal and logical alternative is. Settling into their new quarters at the tower, Washio decides that staying here was the right choice. Alice watches him with her characteristically stoic and unwavering gaze as the night finally begins to fall. Exhausted from the day's stress, the professor offers a tired but genuine goodnight to his mechanical companion. Nearby, the automaton returns to her sleek containment pod, while her master finally drifts into a deep sleep. Closing her eyes, Alice offers a quiet and formal response to the man she now serves as master. Peace settles over the room, while the unlikely pair rests together in the heart of the ancient tower. Deep within the darkness of sleep, fragmented and haunting echoes of the professor's past begin to resurface. A vivid nightmare transports him back 20 years to a desolate battlefield filled with smoke and ruin. Washio tosses and turns restlessly, sweat beading on his forehead as the memories grow increasingly more intense. The image of the small, helpless creature he once swore to protect flickers painfully through his troubled mind. He relives the physical strain of combat, his younger self struggling against an overwhelming and unseen magical force. Blinding light and a massive magical explosion shatter the silence of his dreams with a sudden violent roar. Gritting his teeth, the sleeping man suffers through the weight of a decade's worth of regret and trauma. He stands alone atop a fallen dragon, a solitary hero haunted by the true cost of his great victory. Suddenly, his eyes snap open in absolute terror as the boundaries between memory and reality finally break apart. He gasps for air, his heart racing while the lingering shadows of the nightmare slowly begin to fade. Still lying in the darkness, the professor tries to calm his frayed nerves and steady his rapid, shallow breathing. He senses an unexpected presence nearby, his gaze shifting with a mix of confusion and sudden mounting alarm. To his absolute shock, he finds Alice has climbed into his bed to offer a very unexpected hug. Panicking, Washio screams at the top of his lungs, demanding to know what the automaton is actually doing. Alice explains she hugged him to calm his nightmare, while a flustered Washio insists he is fine now. Her mechanical eye remains fixed on him with a steady and unblinking focus. Refusing to release him, the automaton vows to stay close so her master can finally sleep peacefully. Washio's face is drenched in sweat as he desperately repeats that he is truly okay now. He realizes he cannot break free from her incredible strength, his body completely pinned by her mechanical grip. Gazing down at him, Alice reassures her master that everything is perfectly fine. Stunned into silence, the professor lies there while the repetitive words of reassurance echo in the room. His eye widens in a mixture of panic and confusion at the strange intimacy of the situation. Eventually, he yields and closes his eyes, a single tear escaping as he surrenders to the exhaustion. Embraced tightly, Washio wonders when he was last hugged, feeling a sense of deep and long-awaited comfort. Suddenly, Aria and Claudia burst into the room, their faces contorted with shock and immediate judgment. The two monster girls stare in disbelief at the sight of their teacher in bed with the automaton. Outraged shouts fill the old tower as the girls declare this situation to be the absolute worst. They scream their disappointment while a panicked Washio begs them to stop using such misleading and inflammatory words. Desperately, he attempts to calm them by arguing that Alice is merely an inorganic machine. Alice remains entirely unbothered by the chaos, her stoic expression a sharp contrast to the heated argument. Her calm features reflect the logical and detached nature of her mechanical existence amidst the emotional storm. The jealous students remain deeply skeptical, finding it nearly impossible to believe their teacher's frantic excuses. Washio begs Alice to speak up and defend him, yet his students continue to watch him with suspicion. Closing her eyes, the automaton simply retreats into silence, leaving her master to deal with the consequences alone. Alice clarifies that she is not a human being, but rather a sophisticated magical automaton. However, she casually adds that she possesses reproductive functions, causing an immediate wave of shock to erupt. This sudden and bizarre revelation leaves Washio and his students completely paralyzed in a state of wide-eyed disbelief. A heavy silence falls as the professor breaks into a nervous sweat, utterly speechless from the embarrassing news. Meanwhile, the surrounding staff members react with outrage, shouting that the current topic is both indecent and shameless. Aria looks down with a look of intense embarrassment, her eyes reflecting her deep internal conflict and flushing face. Soon after, the girls begin a playful competition for his time by offering various lunch invitations and home-cooked meals. Observing the scene, other male students whisper among themselves about the professor's surprising popularity with beautiful young women. The sun continues to shine brightly over the majestic spires and stone walls of the grand magical academy building. Inside the lecture hall, a professor works diligently at the chalkboard while explaining high-level magical theory to the class. Aria remains distracted at her desk, her mind drifting back to the intimate moments shared between her sensei and others. Pouting in frustration, she wonders what specific actions she must take to finally win her beloved teacher's oblivious heart. The lecture continues around her while she stares blankly at her open textbook, unable to focus on her studies. Her expression softens as she remains lost in her personal thoughts, her gaze reflecting a quiet and determined longing. Examining her peers, she notices the distinct differences in how their school uniforms emphasize their unique and diverse forms. She suddenly adjusts her own jacket and tie, deciding to present herself in a way that might be more appealing. Her fingers move with purpose as she fixes her appearance, hoping to capture the attention of the man she loves. Later that evening, Washio slumps at his desk, scratching his head in total despair over his failing research project. He admits to himself that he has made absolutely no progress in translating the cryptic and ancient magical spellbook. Staring at the mysterious symbols, he realizes the text is incomprehensible since he only understands his native Japanese language. Washio rests his head, pondering if he should finally ask a linguistics professor for some professional translation help. The door creaks open as a silhouette discovers the exhausted teacher slumped over his ancient research materials. A knowing smile spreads across Aria's face as she silently watches her oblivious sensei from the doorway. She debuts a striking new look, having carefully adjusted her uniform to capture his full and undivided attention. Startled by the presence, he looks up as a pair of legs stops directly in front of him. Washio stares in total shock, his face a mask of bewilderment at his student's sudden and inexplicable transformation. Aria leans in close, pouting slightly, while she asks what her sensei is currently doing at his desk. He breaks into a sweat, frantically questioning her bizarre behavior, while his heart rate begins to race. Sensing a weird atmosphere, he asks if she accidentally ate something strange that altered her personality. She ignores his concern and closes the distance, her proximity pushing the poor man to his limit. Aria stands tall and confident, asking about the deciphering progress, while her bold posture leaves him speechless. Overwhelmed by her presence, Washio struggles to focus as intense pressure fills the quiet, dimly lit room. He notes her tone is unusual, and her uniform is disheveled, making the entire encounter feel incredibly wrong. Her gaze lingers on him, reflecting a secret motive while she continues her calculated attempt at seduction. Tugging her collar, she calls his name while the exhausted professor watches her in pure bewilderment. She complains about the heat in class, subtly fanning herself to provoke an emotional reaction from him. The tension reaches a boiling point, leaving Washio short-circuiting as his brain fails to process her actions. Despite rolling up her sleeves, she insists she is still hot, baffling the increasingly panicked and worried teacher. He screams in total confusion. Aria looks dejected, realizing her attempt to mimic Claudia's charm has only left her beloved sensei utterly baffled. Aria decides on a bold strategy to gain her teacher's attention, declaring she finally knows what to do. In a sudden move, she pulls Washio's head toward her chest, while the professor freezes in absolute shock. She playfully urges him to take a break and rest against her, imitating a seductive and caring demeanor. Internally, Aria admits her imitation of Alice's direct approach is actually incredibly embarrassing and difficult to maintain. Washio stares blankly, his mind struggling to process the student's aggressive behavior while the room remains silent. Washio's focus shifts as he calls out to Aria while noticing something strange about the ancient spellbook. The professor gasps in surprise upon seeing the mysterious tome begin to emit an ethereal and bright glow. A monumental pillar of light erupts from the pages, completely enveloping the pair in a radiant, magical aura. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the tower, the sound of a door being opened signals the arrival of visitors. Claudia and Alice enter the quiet office, carrying a fresh stack of books to aid in the translation. Noticing the absence of her teacher, Claudia looks around the empty room with a confused and worried expression. Alice maintains her composure, asserting that their master is still present despite not being visually in the room. She points toward the open spellbook, revealing that Washio and Aria have entered its hidden inner world. The automaton explains that they are currently facing a trial manifested by the book's ancient and dormant magic. Shimmering runes dance across the weathered parchment of the book as it rests alone on the desk. Trapped inside the void, Washio breaks into a cold sweat as he senses a terrifying and overwhelming presence. Silhouetted against the blinding light, the two are commanded by a mysterious voice to challenge a dangerous test. The professor trembles with fear, frantically questioning their bizarre location while surrounded by floating symbols of power. A spectral message appears, announcing an assessment to determine if they are worthy of the 4 stellar spells. The challenge culminates in a lethal ultimatum, warning that any failure during this trial will cost their lives. Washio opens his eyes slowly, finding himself in an unfamiliar and misty dreamscape after the blinding flash. He sits up on the cold stone floor while Aria remains motionless beside him among ancient pillars. Observing his surroundings with growing unease, he notes that the surrounding white fog is incredibly thick and disorienting. Aria eventually regains consciousness, assuring her concerned teacher that she is unharmed despite the sudden magical transport. Standing together in the vast courtyard, they contemplate their mission and the urgent need to decipher the book. Washio worries about missing the upcoming faction meeting while reflecting on the importance of the study group. Suddenly, Aria's expression sharpens as she senses something unusual lurking within the dense and silent white mist. Shadowy silhouettes materialize through the haze, prompting Aria to warn her sensei about the approaching mysterious figures. The pair watches with weary eyes as the silent intruders continue their slow and ominous advance through the fog. Armed with ancient weapons, a horde of skeletal warriors emerges, their glowing eyes fixed intently on the 2 intruders. Recognizing the immediate danger, Aria notes their hostile intentions, while Washio prepares to defend himself against the assault. One spectral soldier raises a heavy axe, its form shifting like smoke as it readies a lethal strike. Feeling the burden of the trial, Washio complains about the hassle, while Aria questions the purpose of these creatures. Struggling to maintain his focus, The professor feels the pressure of being surrounded by enemies on all sides. Aria narrows her eyes with fierce resolve, readying herself to unleash her hidden magical power against the skeletal army. She makes a swift motion, her movements fluid and precise as she prepares to counter the incoming physical threat. Her fingers trace a familiar pattern in the air, gathering the necessary energy to invoke a powerful offensive spell. With a sharp and commanding gaze, the young monster girl focuses her intent on the center of the crowd. Summoning a massive lightning bolt, she strikes down the front line of enemies with a thunderous and blinding blast. The skeletal warriors instantly begin to dissolve into nothingness as the brilliant electrical discharge tears through their shadowy forms. Aria unleashes massive lightning strikes, obliterating the skeletal warriors with overwhelming magical force. She smirks confidently, declaring that opponents of this level are no match for her true strength. The thick fog begins to clear as the duo stands together amidst the remnants of the destroyed creatures. Washio laughs heartily, praising Aria's incredible power while deciding to leave the remaining tests to her. Aria channels her magical energy again, her hands glowing with electric current as she targets another hidden threat. She remains focused and determined, while a relieved Washio prays for their safe return from the book's world. They gaze out across the vast, empty courtyard, toward the towering pillars as the magical atmosphere shifts. A close-up shows their steady footsteps on the stone tiles, echoing through the silent and mysterious landscape. Aria pauses with a thoughtful expression, realizing something significant about the world they have just entered. She imagines them as Adam and Eve in a primordial world, just her and Washio alone together. Checking her secret mental checklist, she notes the remaining conditions required for her ultimate romantic victory. Blushing intensely, Aria recalls an accidental touch and wonders if they were actually holding hands just now. She resolves to get even closer to her shy teacher, her heart racing with newfound romantic determination. Fidgeting with her hands behind her back, she struggles to maintain her composure while planning her next move. She claims to be tired, hoping to prompt a caring and physical response from her oblivious sensei. Aria boldly asks to be carried, her eyes shimmering with a mix of mischief and genuine affection. Washio laughs awkwardly, questioning her sudden change in behavior while trying to keep a respectful distance. A close-up of Aria's face reveals her growing frustration as her advances continue to be misunderstood. She grips her skirt tightly when he offers help, confused by his remark about her being different. Aria softly confesses her desire to be seen like Claudia, just as Washio notices something behind her.